Florida's Civic Literacy Time, the podcast where we break down what you need to know to pass the FCLE. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto. Today we've got a very special guest, Dr. Jacob Shively. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Shively.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, quick bio, guys. Dr. Shively is currently the Associate Dean of the College of Arts, Social Sciences, and Humanities at the University of West Florida, UWF Go Argos. He is also an Associate Professor in the UWF Department of Government. Listen. It is an honor to have Dr. Shively on the podcast today. In addition to American politics, he has taught a wide range of international relation courses. Dr. Shively's research focuses on U.S. foreign policy, and he has published a dissertation, various articles, and 2 books. His forthcoming and 3rd book analyzes grand strategy during the Biden administration. Now, today's exam cram is focused on the U.S. Constitution's preamble. What's a preamble? A preamble is an introductory statement that communicates purpose or mission, goals, intention. In this case, it's 52. 52 very powerful, amazing, and beautiful words that start with the phrase, "We the people." Yeah, sound familiar? Let's visualize this moment. It's 1787. The framers are debating, drafting, and directly shaping these 52 powerful words at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And these words, they go like this.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Powerful, isn't it? Now, where do we start? Let's break it down phrase by phrase and explore what all this means, like back in 1787 and today. First, we the people of the United States. This is so poetic. The opening phrase, "we the people," is a visionary concept of that time. Because it introduced the idea of popular sovereignty. Well, what's that? Popular sovereignty is the idea that the government's power comes from the people.
That's right. And the underlying idea here is what scholars used to call, or still call, the social contract. It's this idea that you can make a contract with a wide range of people in a political environment, and they agree to follow those rules. Now, in this case, when we talk about popular sovereignty, what we're saying is that contract loops in everybody equally. So they're all part of the same unit, and they're equal pieces of that contract and that agreement. So what the founders are doing here is shifting from a single ruler or a single authority and saying that the people, as a group, are the ones who ultimately mean that the state or the government is legitimate.
This is so profound. So the next part says, in order to form a more perfect union. My take was that the framers didn't claim perfection, but they aimed for more perfect, kind of like my independent claim to continuous self-improvement. But backing up, there are other founding documents before this, and Lincoln talked about the maturing of this more perfect union. See, the Articles of Confederation used the phrase "League of Friendship between the states," and then we see this shift to the very beautiful phrase "more perfect union."
Yeah, that's right. They were trying to move away from the loose Articles of Confederation, which were very similar, if you're familiar with the European Union, it was similar to that. A bunch of states that are independent units that make a contract with each other, but a loose contract, a treaty. They wanted to move away from that model and move toward greater integration to become a single unit and really a single people. Within that, you have this idea of popular sovereignty that we already talked about, right? So the move here is very practical. We're going to be more united, but it's also ideological or oriented around a belief where we're now starting to think of ourselves as a single people And that's much more difficult ultimately to divide. It's not going to be perfect, but it will be more perfect. They're trying to balance this between being ideal and being practical.
Let's discuss 5 core concepts in the preamble after the 2 we talked about. Number 1, to establish justice. We watch the news a lot. Like here, justice means fair laws, impartial courts, and protection from arbitrary power.
Well, once again, the founders, the framers of this document, are being practical and theoretical at the same time. Really was a wise set of folks who had gained that wisdom through hard-earned fighting with each other as well as with the British over time. Now, after the Revolutionary War, what they recognized was that there was no reliable national system to judge claims between states, like let's say 2 states had a disagreement over territory, or let's say local farmers or people in a local community felt like they had losses during the Revolutionary War. Who would they appeal to adjudicate that claim? Today, we have a national court system, but they didn't really have that under the Articles of Confederation. So in practical terms, they're saying we're going to establish courts that can fill this gap that we have currently. The other thing, theoretically, that they're trying to do, in terms of beliefs, is shift toward a greater reliance on what we call rule of law. This idea is that, once again, you're not relying on a single ruler to make arbitrary decisions or to hand down, we're going to do this and not that. Instead, we have this contract, and we're going to try to follow the rules as closely as possible. Now, we all know historically the United States, like any country, has struggled to apply that consistently, but this is a key concept. In fact, John Adams said at one point, our goal here is to build an empire of laws and not of men. So the idea is that we're relying on these known structures, this contract, rather than somebody just arbitrarily telling you what's right and wrong.
I love that quote. That's so excellent. Number 2, it says to ensure domestic tranquility. Like I said, each word was purposely selected. Here, to ensure has a prefix in with the root word sure, but what does that mean? It comes from the Latin word securus, meaning safe or secure, and domestic means here at home. Well, tranquility is peace, so let's just put it all together, and we have to secure peace here at home.
That's right. So with certain events like Shays' Rebellion, if you're not familiar with that, look it up. It's a very famous incident where farmers in Massachusetts rebelled, basically saying, we're not being treated fairly. We have debts that are aggregating, and the state is not helping us with these, even though we had made contributions to the revolution. So that is unstable. It's not tranquil, right? That's not a good place to do business, to go to church, or to raise a family. So part of the goal of this reliable and well-established contract is to ensure this tranquility, to provide the rules of the road, maybe provide courts and so forth. So it's a mission statement. They're saying part of our goal here is try to establish in practical terms who will serve as a backstop or who will provide stability when you have trouble at home. Today, we think about the federal government coming in when there's a natural disaster or you need to build big road projects between states. That's what the national government can do. And then, of course, again, in theoretical terms, the general principle is, look, you can't really be successful in whatever your venture is without tranquility, without this. That's just their word of saying peace and stability, as we might say today.
I think this leads right into the next phrase, number 3, provide for the common defense. Here we're looking at national security, and, we're going to move into this, stick with us a little bit when we get into Article 1 and the powers of Congress.
Without a good national defense, you just don't have a country. The founders realized this pretty quickly. They were leery about having a big military, understandably. This has been an ongoing debate in American history. If you have a big standing military, you have to collect a lot of taxes, and then you have these folks with a lot of guns, more than anybody else, who's going to hold them accountable. So it's a concern because these other empires, like the British they were fighting against, often used military power to put down protests, political activism, and so forth. Nevertheless, the founders recognized that under the Articles of Confederation, they were really vulnerable to all of these large empires around the world. So in this Constitution, what they did was create a division between who can declare war and fund the military. That's Congress. So Congress is the one in charge of actually making sure, building this institution. And then the president, this is crucial, then becomes the commander in chief. So you have the power of the military divided between two branches of government. So common defense is necessary for any government in the world, really, unless they have a big brother that's going to take care of them. But the way they did this was to try to divide up that power to make sure no one piece of that military would get out of control.
That leads us to number 4. To promote the general welfare. This is one of the broadest phrases, and I kind of had to look into it. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, welfare means the state of doing well. So to promote the state of doing well, that leaves room for interpretation. For us, connecting it forward, this clause appears again in Article 1, Section 8, authorizing taxes and spending.
I think what's going on here is a more general idea. This is part of that mission statement. We're doing multiple things here. Some of them are very practical and applied, and others are more general, and this is one of those more general ones. The concept that had emerged over the prior century or two that's related is Commonwealth. If you've heard of like the Commonwealth of Virginia, the idea there is that the state, the government, shouldn't exist simply to impose an order on everybody else or create a hierarchy. It's supposed to be there to serve everyone somewhat equally. So this is another way of saying general welfare. They're saying that the role of this new government, whatever else the debates are and the fights that emerge between people, the goal of this state is to make sure everyone is being treated equally, that they have the space to pursue their interests as they see fit and so forth. So it loosens up the opportunities within the state, but it's also saying there's going to be some clear guidelines and rules that everyone can play the game equally. If you think about it like in a sports competition, everyone has to know what the rules are ahead of time so they can understand how to participate equally and fairly.
Taking it all in, it's like when you put it like that, I wonder if it just gets more powerful as we go on. It starts powerfully, and then it says in concept number 5, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Here, blessings mean favor and protection, and liberty comes from the Latin word meaning free. Posterity means all future generations, meaning the Constitution isn't just for us for right now, but for your descendants and my descendants too. Here, it's not just freedom from government overreach, but positive blessings, opportunity, rights, and self-governance passed to future generations.
Liberty for the framers of the Constitution was fundamental. This was one of the concepts that they were able to use starting in 1776, if not before, to mobilize people to take action and to sacrifice quite a bit or put a lot on the line for independence and ultimately revolution. So part of what they're doing is simply hearkening back to that idea and saying, remember what we fought for? It was for liberty. Freedom, as we say in modern terms, sometimes we'll say freedom from, like freedom from a tyrannical government, freedom from overly burdensome rules or unjust rules and so forth, but also freedom to. So we have freedom from, freedom to, the ability to go and take action, the ability to move about as you see fit, to conduct commerce or worship as you see fit, right? So those two types of freedom are how we sometimes divide it today in modern political science. But I think that's what these founders are talking about here when they talk about liberty. Again, we all know the history of liberty in the United States is uneven. In this very document, they ultimately, indirectly, sometimes directly affirm the institution of slavery. So clearly, they are not entirely consistent about this. But by putting this in the preamble and throughout the Constitution, what they're doing is creating the conditions for that debate to continue and for Americans to press for greater access, greater liberty throughout American history.
Thank you, Dr. Shively. One more thing. The preamble ends with this: do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The words ordain and establish are very, very strong, regal words indicating that We, the people, have the ultimate authority to bring and to decree the U.S. Constitution as the supreme law of the land.
That's a powerful way to put it. In a way, the language itself is just standard contractual language, saying we are affirming that this is something that is happening, and we all agree. As we talked about, this is a contract, a social contract, and they are equal members signing it and affirming to it. But as you're saying, this is a very powerful moment where they're saying there are practical applications here, practical implications that is pulling them from the realm of ideals into this realm of legal application. We are now binding ourselves to this agreement. If a judge rules against me, I have to accept that ruling now, right? And when these courts that didn't exist before, for example. So suddenly they are putting themselves under a new authority that hadn't really existed before. But in theoretical terms or in philosophical terms, also what's happening is that it's open to debate and interpretation. If you sign a contract, it's binding. But you can also say they aren't honoring the terms of the contract, and you can have a lawsuit. Or maybe you can renegotiate the contract if the other party is amenable. So this is a powerful form of government where you're not saying, as some philosophers had, like Thomas Hobbes 100 years prior, once you decide on a sovereign, that's it. In order to ensure order, you just got to listen to that guy. It's always a guy, a king or something, and that's it. You sacrifice everything except your right to life. The founders were taking a very different approach here and saying, we're signing a contract and we're all equal in this contract, but we also equally agree to be bound by it. So it's simple language in a way, but it implies a very, very powerful or profound change in the way individual people relate to their own government. And again, this is something that starts with these kind of elites who are signing this document, and over time, immediately, and then over time, it expands outward to really apply to everyone in the United States.
Let's review. The preamble to the United States Constitution isn't just ancient ink on historical parchment. It's a promise that, is best stated in the preamble itself, and that is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. I love that part. Liberty, the state of being free. And posterity, that's future generations, guys. This isn't just for us right here, right now. It's for your kids, grandkids, and you get the point, great grandkids. The preamble to the United States Constitution is a short introductory statement. It's just 52 words that explains the document's purpose and guiding principles. It's like a mission statement. Here are the key takeaways. We, the people of the United States, this opening boldly asserts popular sovereignty. In order to form a more perfect union, the framers highlighted a union with ongoing progress. Also, 5 preamble concepts we covered. Number 1, establish justice, create fair laws, impartial courts, and safeguards against arbitrary government power. Number 2, ensure domestic tranquility, secure peace and order within the country. In my words, this is a prevention against internal chaos. Number 3, provide for the common defense, ensure national security and protection from external threats, tied to Congress's powers, example, Article 1. Number 4, promote the general welfare. One broad interpretation is to support the well-being and prosperity of citizens. And number 5, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Protect freedoms and rights, which gives us opportunities, not just for the present generation, but for all future ones. And lastly, the preamble ends with, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, decreeing and instituting the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. Dr. Shively, I've got to ask, which part of the preamble means the most to you?
Well, to be honest, like most people, I am still entranced by those opening words, we the people. As an American, to be honest, I've always found that very comforting in a way, that we're all part of this together. But it's also challenging because it says, you own it. We're part of it. We have to take action. We have to maintain this constantly. It isn't just something you hand off to somebody else. What's interesting also for me as a scholar is that over time I've really come to appreciate just how revolutionary those words are as well. Anytime over the thousands of years, humans had built a large political unit, a state or something like that, it was created and rested on hierarchy and dominance. That was the basic social organization. You have smaller units, tribes, or whatever that were a little more equal. But once you start getting people into large groups, it was very difficult for humans to imagine any other way other than dominance over others to create stability. And what the American founders are doing here is not just theoretically, but practically implementing something new where everyone is part of that unit and part of that contract, like we were talking about. So they've unlocked something bigger than themselves and in some ways bigger than their own intentions. It probably grew more than they would have imagined. And it really changed the course of all of our lives when they ratified those words.
Wow. Well, Dr. Shively, thank you for joining us today. We'd love to have you back on the podcast anytime. Kind of speechless here. Hey, was there a side conversation, Benjamin Franklin, and it said something like, here's a republic if you can keep it?
That's right. It's somewhat apocryphal, but they come out of the Constitutional Convention. And a woman comes up and asks, what have you given us? What kind of government? And he says, a republic, if you can keep it,
God.
right? So, and the idea of a republic is you have representatives, but we're all citizens who contribute to it. We all own a little piece of it together.
This is fascinating. Well, our time is out, and that's it for this episode of FCLE Seminar. What are your thoughts on the preamble of the United States Constitution? I mean, after everything you just learned, share this exam cram with your study buddies. And hey, if you have any questions, then hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear from you for some civic discourse. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and stay curious. This is your host, Mercedes Musto, signing off.